Dr. Stephen Amoah's remarks come after calls from different stakeholders, including opposition lawmakers who are against the e-levy, for the government to run to the International Monetary Fund (IMF) for financial support and policy credibility. According to him, it's time stakeholders support the government to implement homegrown solutions to deal with the current economic difficulties. The e-levy was introduced by government in the 2022 budget on basic transactions related to digital payments and electronic platform transactions. The rate in the budget was 1.75%, but it is expected to be reduced to 1.5%. Despite the intended reduction, there is still stiff opposition for its passage. Government earlier this week announced its plans to withdraw the controversial e-levy bill currently before Parliament and introduced a revised version in the coming days. In an interview with Citi TV, Dr. Stephen Amoah said he is opposed to going to the IMF because the institution's interventions in previous times has not proven to have substantially changed the country's fortunes.
Our predecessors, our brothers from NDC went to IMF. By the time they were losing elections, what happened? We were growing 3.2. Interest rates getting to 40. Reserves less than 2 months. Did the IMF help us? So how come that after all the IMF, NDC government had the worst defeat in the Fourth Republic, difference of about 1 million votes. So every day we should rely on somebody external. For once, we should take the bull by the horn and manage our own affairs. What did Kwame Nkrumah say? The black man is capable of managing his own affairs. So the slightest shock, we should rely on somebody. Are you sure we are going to learn how to come out of troubles and challenges? I don't believe. I'm not saying IMF is not good for people to give us alternatives. But what I'm saying is that we went to IMF. If it had helped us, why did the NDC suffer a defeat with about 1 million difference? I'm asking you, and they came with conditionality for Ghana government not to employ our own people for about 4 years. You remember? Is that good for us? That you go to IMF and they will tell you don't employ anyone, and students will be home crying. I don't believe in that. We need a flexibility to manage our crisis.
Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Al-Hassan Suhini, has reiterated calls for government to control misappropriation and misapplication of public funds rather than pushing for the passage of the electronic transfer levy bill.
I recall before the previous government went to the IMF, the finance minister at the time was against, going to the IMF and made it public. He was very confident in the homegrown solutions that the government was seeking to adopt at the time after the, Senchi consensus. Unfortunately, the credibility of the nation and its economic handlers had been so battered that investors needed some, assurance that the government was going to stick to the program that it had adopted. And so we eventually had to go to the IMF. So, I think that it's only a matter of time, and perhaps the earlier we took a decision that will, in the long run, help us, recover from the crisis that we are in, the better for all of us. Clearly, the government has mismanaged, what it inherited over the years. They have engaged in some reckless expenditure, leading to corrupt practices all over that we are told amounts to the states losing about 3 billion, a year, to corruption. So these are the reasons why we are where we are. So if we have to be disciplined by the international agencies, unfortunately, so be it. But even with the e-levy that is being pushed, it is clear that it's not enough to save this government. In the unlikely event that they even pass it, it will still not be enough.